Hi, and welcome to the OT is In, the podcast where we merge the worlds of education and occupational therapy to empower families like yours. I'm Sarah Collins, your host, an occupational therapist and a homeschooling parent. I've experienced occupational therapy by supporting families for over 15 years, but also through seeking out support of my own children, so I'm right here in the trenches with you. Though there is not one way to educate your child, there is a lot to consider when individualizing an education. And the goal of this podcast is to explain some of the why behind what an occupational therapist is thinking so you can apply it to your own family. Especially with my three favorite topics: executive functioning, handwriting, and sensory processing. Each episode will be packed with practical tips, expert interviews, and real-life stories aimed at helping you to create a supportive learning environment for your child. So, grab your headphones and get ready to dive in of the collision of education and occupational therapy. I'm Sarah Collins from Homeschool OT, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this journey of discovery. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In. This is the podcast where we delve into the world of occupational therapy and its various applications. I'm your host, Sarah Collins, and today I'm thrilled to bring you an episode featuring an insightful conversation with the seasoned early intervention occupational therapist, Allison Carter. She has over 2 decades of experience in early intervention. She works with infants and toddlers, providing home-based therapy and supporting families in their natural environments. In this episode, she shares her journey and sheds light on the crucial role of OTs in early intervention and how we as homeschoolers can seek out those services and when we should or should not do so. We explore how occupational therapy aligns with homeschooling philosophies, the concepts of early intervention, how children qualify, the importance of tailored family-focused therapy. Really, we delve into everything. We also chat about the importance of finding the right fit between therapists and families. This is something that I am asked over and over and over again. So finally, since this episode is originally airing in December, we talk about strategies for maintaining routines during the hectic holiday season. So whether you're an OT or a homeschooling parent considering OT, or just a parent of a young child, this episode is packed with valuable insights and practical advice. So let's dive in and learn how occupational therapy can support our kids in achieving their milestones right where they are at home. Happy holidays from the OT is In podcast. This holiday season, we want to send warm wishes to all of our listeners. So whether you're cozying up with hot cocoa or wrapping up another busy homeschool day, we're grateful to be here and be a part of your journey. I also want to remind you of all the natural learning that occurs each and every day for your children. I recognize this time of year, many are busy with activities that vary from your typical rhythm and routine. And I also recognize this variance can be stressful for your children and for some of you that worry and stress about doing enough for your child's academics. So the reverse planning guide from homeschoolot.com is the perfect tool for those of you that need a reminder that you are doing enough. Most likely more than enough. This guide is designed to help you recognize the motor skills, the social skills, the cognitive skills, and their tie to academics that you are already naturally doing. There's a worksheet that allows you to jot notes, while a video teaches you to break down and analyze the activities, simplifying your homeschooling journey. So, though it can be useful all year round, it's especially useful right now during the holiday season. So don't just plan, celebrate the learning that's happening already every day. Thank you guys for being a part of our community, and here we are wishing you a joyful holiday season and a bright start to the new year. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In. My name is Sarah Collins, and today I have a fellow OT, occupational therapist, Allison Carter. Allison, can you just go ahead and dive in on who you are and what you bring to the field of occupational therapy?
Yes, thank you for having me. Allison Carter, and I'm an occupational therapist. I've been working for 22, 23 years in early intervention, and I have been doing that for a long time, but I also started a podcast about 4 or 5 years ago called Milestones. And so I took a little break from that for a while, but recently started back trying to get back into it. Yeah, I work with infants and toddlers 0 to 3 in their homes or community setting. And I also do like private pay with some older kids that are too old for that program. So that's what I do.
Awesome. I love that. And I love, so we're talking here to primarily the homeschool community, right? And
Mhm.
so obviously we are in our homes on a day-to-day basis, and we recognize the beauty of our own environments and how that impacts our own students, right? And what they need and want
Mhm.
to do. And no two homeschools are alike. And that's
Yeah.
what with early intervention, right?
Yes.
That's why you go into people's homes in the way that you do.
Yeah, that's why I love it is because, yeah, we're working directly in their home environment where they're comfortable and using their own things. And it's funny because I have worked with homeschool families that are too old for the program, school age or whatever. And I know sometimes people are a little bit leery inviting me in because I'm not a homeschool exact person, but it's to me, it is the same. What I do, it's the same philosophy, I think, as what homeschoolers usually do, where, yeah, it's child led and it's really what we have in the home and just working that way. So it's not, yeah, to me, I don't know. I think it works well to do
I
early intervention and then also work with homeschool families. I actually really love it. Yeah.
I love it too. My earliest background was, or my very beginning as an OT was in early intervention. And as we're saying this, I realize we should probably define that term. So go
True.
ahead. Can you just, yeah, say what early intervention is and what the role of an OT is within early intervention?
So yeah, early intervention is the 0 to 3 age, zero birth to 3 years. And it is a family-based program. It's completely voluntary, and you have to qualify usually either by a diagnosis or by having a half-age delay in development of at least one area. And so the OT's role in that is to come in and really the focus is what the family wants to work on. And that's what it's so great. It completely makes sense because for one, it's what the family is wanting. So they're going to be motivated to work on it because that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
But also my job is to come in with my experience and say, these are some strategies that you might be able to try based on what you've said or how your child is and what their child's abilities are. And that can be anything from feeding to motor to language, really all of it. And yeah, so really it's amazing because it is the family's goals, and it's of course with our suggestions or guidance as to like developmentally, here's where a child this age would typically be and kind of things to work on to be in that zone. But really, it doesn't matter necessarily what I think because it's really what the parents care the most about. Can they eat? Can they get themselves dressed? Whatever it is, that's our main focus. So, yeah.
So I love the way that you're mentioning the typical developmental norms, right? Because and you said a half age delay. So for someone who's thinking, I don't really understand what that means, can you
Yeah.
clarify that a little bit
Yeah.
more?
Yeah. So if you don't have a diagnosis that automatically qualifies you for our program each program is based on the state requirements, and I work in the state of Missouri. So in Missouri, they have set diagnoses that automatically you qualify for our program based on the fact that you're more at risk for having developmental delays. And if you don't have a diagnosis, then we do a standardized test, and it covers fine motor, gross motor, social emotional, speech and language, and cognitive. And you have to score. So if you're 24 months old, you have to score to 12-month age or lower. That would be a half age. So 50% of your age in at least one area. So you can qualify, yeah, in one area. Let's say it's fine motor. And then the family's, yeah, but I really want to work on language. Okay, as long as they qualify, we can work on whatever the family wants.
So it's interesting because when I worked in early intervention, it was in Maryland and it was a 25% delay. So it's a
Yeah,
totally, it depends on what the state is, and then also a diagnosis that would get somebody in the door.
yeah.
Now, when a parent is seeking out early intervention or saying, what are some top things that you would say, and how do they get started in that?
How do they get started in the program?
Yeah.
Or yeah. So it's pretty easy for our state. And I don't know, I can't speak to every state, obviously, but parents can self-refer just to call the phone number and just tell the person that answers they're concerned about their child and they'd like an evaluation. It's simple as that for us. Yeah. We are very lucky. I feel like our children's hospital in Kansas City is really, for the most part, informed about our program. And so they will really quite often refer families directly to, before they even leave the hospital at birth, they'll say, call this number when you get home, and it's us. Yeah, that is a really big source of referrals too. And unfortunately, not as many of our local pediatricians know. Some of them that we work with, communicate with more often, obviously they know us, but yeah, it's just a matter of sometimes getting the word out there that this is even a thing. So many families are like, come to us and they've got 6 months before they turn 3 and they're going to age out. And they're like, I wish I would have known about this program before.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because it's so simple. I have to just call and get the evaluation. There's not, when you go for other evaluations at hospitals or whatnot, where they might have 3, 6, 12-month waiting list, where we get in immediately. So we have, from the time of referral, we have 45 days, I think is the exact number, to evaluate and set up a plan.
Yeah.
Yes. So it happens really quickly. And then once the plan is set, we have 30 days to start services. And most of the time it happens within the first week. Yeah.
You guys, this is so important because I think there's a few things and a few reasons. To be honest with you, this isn't even what Allison and I were prepared to talk about. And we're going to jump into that in a second. But as usual, I just want to follow where these conversations lead. And there is frequently, in fact, there's only one article that I've been able to find about occupational therapy and homeschooling. And this one dates back to 2018 by Susan Iliff. And it was talking about, do homeschoolers know what occupational therapy is and how to access it? And in general, it basically said no. And
Yeah.
so part of the reason for this podcast is to make sure that families know how to receive services to support you. And what Allison has been saying here is that your goal, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, but it's to come in to where family is, to their natural environment,
Yep.
to work on the family's goals. So really it's to pair their expertise in their children with your expertise as an OT to help our kiddos to be able to do what they need and want to do. And seems pretty simple in most areas. In Maryland, it was the same thing. You just literally called the number. And that's what we went through early intervention. I worked as early intervention for my very beginning of my career and then had my son in early intervention as well. It really can make a big difference to say, I feel like we just need a little bit of support here. There's resources out there for you.
Yeah, and that brings up a thing that I've noticed too. Like my kids are older. I'm not a homeschool parent. I love the philosophy and I understand it as much as I can, and I agree with it. But that doesn't mean that the homeschool community is going to let me come in. That has been a difficult barrier I have found because locally, I've reached out to my local homeschool co-op things that I can find, and I can't even really communicate with them to let them know that, like, here's my services, here's my philosophy. I'm an option. You guys decide for yourselves, whatever, but that I haven't been able to break through that because I feel like I could really help a lot more people in that community that I just don't have the access to. And oh,
Yeah, you guys, I'd actually love for homeschoolers to come weigh in on this. Let us know in show notes or email me or whatever. I am a homeschool parent. I'm an occupational therapist, obviously. And
Mhm.
to be honest with you, I've found some of those same barriers. Now, I will also tell you, as a homeschool parent, when I was taking my son to be evaluated, and I had met a lot of pushback on what we
Yep.
do. So there is
Mhm.
quite a bit of, we have to overcome almost the bias on both sides. The bias that
Yep.
from us here as homeschool parents thinking that every therapist or every professional
Mhm.
is going to be questioning us, because that's not necessarily true, but
Yep.
can be people's experiences, and those experiences are very valid, right?
Yep.
And on
And I understand. Yeah, totally. It's just how do you break that
right.
when you've got people that are like-minded on both sides that understand. And like I had a family call me a long time ago that was a homeschool family. They found my name off the internet, just randomly looking for sensory processing OTs. And her first question for me was, are you going to make my child do something that if she doesn't want to do it, are you going to
Right.
force her to do it? And I was like, no. And then I could almost feel her relax just from that response. And then I hung up the phone eventually, and I was like, whew, okay, I just did an interview, but I don't care. I appreciate that she wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. And
Absolutely.
we were, and actually I worked with them for 5 years and I still follow like what they're doing. Like it was a great relationship. And my point in all that was I wish there was a way that could happen where the homeschool community could find out that we're interested as a provider and have the same philosophy. And just if they want to, call me and we can talk about, or not just me, but like any OTs in your area, and just see if your philosophies align and whatever. It doesn't have to be like us coming in and like trying to change your situation or whatever,
Right.
because I
Right.
don't feel that way. Yeah, at all.
So
Anyway,
on
yeah.
the Homeschool OT website for parents out there, there are two things, and I'll make sure they're linked in the show notes here. But there are places for you to go, like how to find the correct service area, because like we've mentioned here, there's early intervention, there's school-based services, there's private
Mhm.
pay, there's so many different options. So there is a guide to find out, do I need OT, and how and where do I find it? There
Mhm.
also are questions to ask an occupational therapist so that you can go through almost what Allison was saying here, this interview process, but not really such an interview,
Mhm.
more as finding the right fit.
Yep.
Now, Allison, as far as what you're saying, they're also on the Homeschool OT. I offer courses for occupational therapists on homeschooling, and then have a
Mhm.
guide for all of the United States as far as OTs that are homeschool friendly. So if parents, if you're looking for an OT, then come to me and let see if I have someone in your state or nearby you. And OTs,
Mhm.
if you're listening to this, come there and get on that list, because we want to find that nice
Yeah.
pair. Homeschooling is not alone schooling, but we need to make sure that it is a good fit for sure. So this episode is brought to you by CTC Math, the program that we have used for years in our homeschool. Now, I love this program all year round, but especially during the holiday season where our rhythm and routine are more flexible. CTC Math is a flexible online math curriculum that adapts to your family's unique schedule, whether you need to adjust for a busy week, accommodate for different learning paces, or just want the freedom to work around life's surprises. So CTC Math not only provides structured lessons, but also offers built-in evaluations, giving you as a parent a clear, real-time view of how your child is progressing. With these insights, you can support your child exactly where they need it most, helping them master each topic before moving on. And I love that I can check out a PDF of what will be covered in each lesson, so I can chat with my kids about the real application of math during our holiday activities. So for example, since I just checked in on the PDF of the math that my 8th grader is doing, we had a conversation about rational versus irrational numbers, and then applied those same labels, definitions, to rational versus irrational song lyrics for the holiday music that we have playing around the clock. So random yet effective, because though we decided I'm not the best math teacher for them, and I balance my time differently than sitting next to them for all of their lessons, I do want to support their learning in our everyday activities. And CTC Math makes that possible for me. So you should try CTC Math today and experience the freedom and clarity that it begins and brings to your homeschool. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit. And since it is December, as this is airing, so many of our day-to-day routines change. And Allison, you've talked beautifully about how during early intervention, we come in and work with families on what is important to them, but also within their own routines, their rhythms, things that are working within their own home. But during December, this often changes, right? And why do you think this change in rhythm or routine can be so difficult for kids?
And I'm thinking that you're talking about kids with sensory processing needs.
There are so many different reasons, right?
Yeah.
But that is one. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think honestly about it, most people, not just kids, but even adults, really find comfort in routine and predictability in their life. So I don't to me, it's a whole life kind of thing, but as an adult, we can rationalize what's happening. Whereas the kids, they just don't have that skill oftentimes yet, with or without sensory issues.
Yeah, that's all executive functioning that you were just saying, like the time management and understanding even seasonal things. And those are skills that don't come for a while. They are often later in life.
Yes. And even some adults still obviously would struggle with that depending on their needs. But yeah, so I have an example, and I thought we could talk about that and how it relates with kids, because sensory stuff to me is so not to me, but to a lot of people is very abstract. To me, I find it very concrete because I've been doing it for so long and researching it. But so I try to give real life examples and situations that might help. So one thing I was thinking about is, and I think a lot of us as adults can relate to starting a new job. And when you go in your first day and you're not exactly sure what to expect, you're not sure if you're going to get along with your coworkers or your boss. When's the lunch break going to be? What am I supposed to be doing? Like for my here, what am I supposed to do when I'm here? What am I supposed to do? They might be distracted or overwhelmed. And also it can be really exciting. That to me is an example, and this is very simplistic, so I apologize, but just to make it more easy to understand.
Yeah.
That to me is like what we do with kids when we have a break from our normal routine and we're going to go do, not pumpkin patch because Halloween's done, but we're going to go do looking for a Christmas tree or some holiday, whatever events that you might be into. Or even just like family gatherings and all the things that happen in December. So anyway, so every time that you go to a different event that's out of your normal routine, try to think of it as a child starting a new job. And that's extreme. But if you think about it that way, you can understand that they're not sure what to expect when they go there. They're not sure if they're going to get along with the other people that are there. They're not sure if they're going to get lunch or a snack or whatever. They're just not really sure what they're expected to do. And you may see them be distracted or overwhelmed, also excited. So it's like all those things.
Yeah, those things can coexist.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes people get confused because they're really excited and they seem like they're so happy and like they want to be here, but then at the same time they're melting down or they're just being really quiet or on the other end. So it's like all those things can be emotions that are going on. And I think for us, their sensory is so infinite and possibility with individuals and what you do for them or strategies. So I try not to give I can't give every example. I would say that where I would start with it is how to make it predictable and how to make it familiar. Those are like the two key things that, like I said in the beginning of this topic, like all of us want. And sometimes it's our best environment is when it is like that. It's hard to do that everywhere we go, but we can try by having their familiar objects. And a lot of these things are just like pretty natural. We do anyway. But sometimes we're not thinking of it when we run out the door because we got to go. It's something that I think we have to try to be more mindful of in a situation where it may potentially not go well, or something might happen that might go south when we're there. So yeah, bringing their snacks, drinks, or just even just like the favorite blanket, or if they have sensory things with a pressure vest or fidget toy, chewy tube, any of the sensory strategies that you might already use at home. Again, a lot of times we know that we bring our familiar things, but I think it's just important to realize that is an actual strategy. Like, this can be familiar, this can make it routine. The other part of it is before the situation or before the event, like just regular daily life, working on like breathing techniques, calming strategies at home, just when they're not needed, but as just a thing that you do to, hey, let's practice breathing, and just call whatever you want to call. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or just doing some, okay. Oh, I thought you were frozen. So doing those at home where everything is the most comfortable, so that when you get out to this public situation, you're not trying to teach that. Now you already have that as a strategy that you can try. And also really just being aware of the signs if your child gets overstimulated or overwhelmed in situations or events at other places, that you start to recognize the signs before they get to the point where they're reached the limit or even halfway to the limit, and you can take them out of the situation, go outside, go walk around parking lot, or just sit in the car for a few minutes and listen to their favorite song, different things to where they can just decompress, get themselves ready to be able to come back in and hopefully continue participating in whatever the event might be, the
I
situation
think this is great. I think so far what I've heard you talk about is the observation of our own children, so that we know when they are gearing towards that meltdown or that something is too much, especially since the environments are changing and the rhythm, the routine can be changing so much. And then you've talked about practicing these strategies at home at other times, so that piece is at least familiar. And you've talked about building your own team to make sure that you're getting the supports that you need. And these are 3 really important things, no matter what time of year, but especially during this time of year that things are so irregular. Allison, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
Tell me and tell our audience here, like, where can they find you? First of all, obviously where you work, but also where can they find you, not necessarily in.
Yeah. So for probably most people listening, you could find me. My Milestones is the name of my podcast, Milestones. And that should be anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And let's see, also I have an Instagram page, and that is under Milestones as well. And then you can find my website is mymidwesttherapy.com, or you can just email me at Allison, ALISON, at mymidwesttherapy.com. So those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here and for leading us in this discussion that I think is so important for families of how do we build our team, but then also on during this specific time of year, how can we support our kiddos to be able to do what they need and want to do.
Thank you for having me on.